Hello, and welcome to episode 91 of the Liquidity Event. We are your hosts, Shane Mason.
And John Owens, pinch hitting for AJ Ayers this week.
That's right, baby. We've got the Director of Financial Planning at Brooklyn FI, the man in the hot seat. Welcome back, John.
Glad to be here, Shane. You're outside right now. I want to point that out. This is not a fake background.
Yes, for those of you watching the YouTube stream of this and not listening, of which there are thousands of you.
Millions, probably.
Millions, probably. You're going to see my background. And no, it's not AI generated. I'm traveling. It's the summer conference travel season. We're post-tax season. I'll be bouncing around a lot. AJ's in Japan right now. That's why John's here. So it's going to be exciting summer. A lot of time to listen to podcasts. Time to record them a little bit harder to find. So also while my audio is a little subpar, we're recording on April 26, 2023. This will be airing on April 28th, 2023. What we've got for you today is we've got a lot of updates in Apple's land. The flywheel on rich people apparently is deeper than we thought. We got a lot of bank stuff, a lot of FTT, a lot of FTX, a lot of First Republic Bank, a lot of that. We're going to get into layoffs, unfortunately. We might touch on Johnson & Johnson's IPO. We'll probably save that for next week. And then we got a lot of AI updates, of course, because it's 2023, and you have to hear about AI every 16 seconds. Okay? So getting into it, John, how are you personally? You just went through tax season as a financial planner. What did you have, 200 clients this year? How are you doing?
I had quite a few clients to take through tax season, but I'm doing all right. I don't know, Shane, you've had more tax seasons than me. We've both been through several tax seasons. Do you feel the post tax season depression? And the best thing I can relate it to is as a runner, I'll run a race. I'll run a half marathon. I've run a marathon. I've run several halves, and afterwards, you kind of come down off this high, and you feel a little funky for a few days. And I feel the same way after tax season. I think it's because the last couple weeks of tax season, you get this adrenaline rush that powers you through, and you have long days, and you just muscle through it, and then you're coming back down to reality. So I go to the beach to resolve my tax season depression. That's what I did last weekend, and it really helped. But yeah, how are you doing? Do you feel something like that, or is it just me?
I get it every year, buddy. You got it nail on the head. Exact same thing. There's this big buildup. You're no longer, also your friends talk about you a lot. They're like, where is he? And you're like, oh, he's got tax season going on. So you're just a topic of conversation. You're the man of the month or whatever. Some people call it tax week. So I heard Planet Money. I love when they do that.
Week.
They come on April 10th and well, it is tax week, people. So we got this podcast all about tax evasion for poor people. And you're like, y'all, it's a 3-month situation here, at least for the professionals. But yeah, there is that, the date comes and goes, and then you just feel you want it to be over with for months, and then it is over with, and you're like, well, I guess it's just not as exciting. It's like prom, I guess it's exactly like prom, John. That's the best analogy I could come up with at 36 years old as of Wednesday.
Happy belated birthday, by the way.
True. Yes. I was born on April 19th, so right after tax season. So apparently I was born to tax, baby. Impuestos. Para me.
Let me be the first to tell you, don't look a day past 40, Shane, before we jump in here. You look a day past 40.
Well, good. I've got 4 years of capacity to grow into here. Okay. All right. So we're going to start with some fun articles this week. We have a lot of articles, so your boy's going to do a little rapid fire this week, just kind of get a tit for tat. We did take last week off because it was the tax deadline. We did our AI piece, so we're going to end on AI since our audience has already heard enough about that. So right off the rip, John, super important to our listeners, apparently chartreuse quality and quantity has come down because the monks over in Europe don't feel like they give a shit anymore. Your thoughts? Okay, no.
Can you explain this to me and a reason why I might care?
Yes. So our listeners know, the way that we get articles is that anyone at Brooklyn FI can throw an article into the podcast channel, and if they want to hear about it, it gets talked about it, okay? So it turns out that the monks that create green chartreuse, which is really important for some certain cocktails, they just don't give a damn about producing it anymore. They say it's getting in the way of their studies, so they've just cut down on production because they have enough damn money to run their monastery over in the French Alps. So the only reason this article is in here, and we left it in here, is because the last word, as a former cocktail bartender, if you're into cocktails, you need to make yourself the last word. Okay, that's the best cocktail from the 1800s that they revived in the 1950s. All right, moving on. So we have another article here from AJ, surprisingly enough, about why female executives don't play golf and why that's a problem. John, do you think there's a problem for female executives that are not playing golf? What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think there's this whole factor of like inclusivity, right? And golf has become a sport that was traditional. Was a sport that was traditionally dominated by what white working men, for the most part. But I feel like more and more, women are playing golf, and I think that's great, right? Because I feel like that was potentially part of the glass ceiling that we saw of like, oh well, the men are going to go play golf, and I'm assuming it's more of a historical issue, but you had a chance to dig into this one a little bit more. And AJ on our team plays golf, right? Kind of sticking with the finance thing. I don't play golf. Do you play golf? I don't even remember.
My dad, I was fortunate enough, he tried to get me to learn. So I've got like a natural, like I have all the fundamentals of it. I've got like a sportsman's, yeah, I can play golf. I'll be playing golf tomorrow, actually, weird enough.
Okay.
This is like a golf. I just wrote here from a guy that played golf since he was in high school. Like being obsessed with, like he flew his golf clubs here from Colorado to Arizona. Like I'm not that type of person. I don't own clubs or anything. But yeah, interesting take. So I guess the takeaway is that like if they spent more time networking on the golf course, they could build their careers, because you have that 5 hours of one-on-one time with other professionals that are like, have less of a heterogeneous, like you're meeting new people and getting to know them really well, which should help with business. Yeah, it's a hobby. I don't know. Hot take, having kids is a hobby. Oh, they also mentioned that like women are usually the caretakers, and that's the downside of being a woman. Like if you're the one taking care of all the burden of raising the family, like you just don't have 5 hours on a Saturday
to go and play golf. Yeah. But I don't know. Yeah. I feel like we're like as a society we're moving forward, becoming more progressive, and I think like family dynamics are changing, and we're seeing the stay-at-home dad and the woman executive who does play golf and the husband who doesn't, and those sorts of things. And I mean, I think that's good, right? More inclusivity, more changes here. But yeah, I do think. I don't know if I love the whole headline of like why more women executives don't play golf and why that's a problem. Why don't we talk about like all the great things that women executives are doing? Right. And why we're stuck in our kind of old school mentality of you need to play golf to be successful. That sort of thing. I don't know.
Great headline from the Wall Street Journal if you want to get clicks, which we did. So speaking of clicks, Apple's a computer company. You click on it a lot. Apple plans on an AI-powered health coaching service. The Mood Tracker and iPad have a new health app. Got an article here from Bloomberg on Apple expanding its flywheel into getting deeper into fitness and healthcare. Your thoughts?
Well, yeah, and then we got another article coming up here on banking, and Apple wants to be involved in everything, and I think, Shane, I go back and forth with this. I have mixed feelings, right? I have a Garmin watch. It's right here. It's not wearing it right now. I wear it all the time, though, and I use it to track my workouts. I don't wear it all the time, not wearing it right now, but I use it to track my workouts. I use it to track my exercise, do all that sort of thing. It doesn't give me a ton of like health insights. I feel like the Apple products do a little bit more, but balance between, being healthy or using tech to do that and how much information, take your pick, Apple, Google, whoever it might be, have about, us and our privacy. And does privacy really exist anymore with all this? Because, Apple knows when you get up, when you go to bed, how much money you have in your bank account here potentially soon, and all these other health facts. And does that make us healthier? And how do they use that data? I'm always a little bit sus. What about you?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of my thoughts on this when I first read these two articles about two different sectors that they're getting into. They're also getting into buy now, pay later. So we've got lending, we've got savings accounts here, and now we've got fitness data, mood tracking and sleep tracking and subscriptions around fitness, and and healthcare essentially. Like it's going to be tracking our mood. Apparently, their intent is for our ability to input how we're feeling during the day so that we can keep track of like things that are impacting our emotional health. So we're kind of getting into mental health here as well and it's like, wow, they're really, really expanding the flywheel. I mean, who has a lot of cash, who can afford mental health, who can afford hardware, like the most expensive hardware in the world. And it's like Apple's doubling down on the 1 billion richest people on the planet that can afford an iPhone and all those other devices. And I was just thinking, like, why are they going into these big spaces? Like, and you have to wonder, like, a company of this size, like what additional sectors are they going to target? And they're going to be sectors that are fat, right? Sectors that have a lot of margin, that don't have a ton of competition, aka healthcare and banking, especially post banking meltdown that we're seeing here, where we have all these
Yeah.
regional people getting deleted, and there's just four big contenders that are globally important. And it's because I had to look at their market cap too, John, and did some research, and apparently, their market cap is around 2.7 billion or trillion, of course. And I had to wonder, like, how big are they compared to the entire U.S. S&P market cap? And it's around 40 trillion. So you're looking at a company that's about 10% of the public value
Yeah.
So to go from 10% to say 15% of they have to eat giant other companies, that are making up 5% of the market cap of the U.S. stock market, et cetera. So they have to look at banking. They have to look at, they're not going to get into tiny sectors that don't have the scale. Like a company this size needs to deploy things at scale.
They need to put it at scale to the customers that they have already, right? To the clientele that they've already got in their pocket, right? And it's like, great, like on your iPhone, you can open up a bank account and we can now track your mood. And damn it, I don't need an app to tell me what my mood is. But no, I'm just I know that I'm intolerant at times, but. Think about like other companies that have done this in the past. You think about like Procter and Gamble, right? You think about like General Electric, right? It used to be like these companies that do everything, right? They're in every sector, and they become these big behemoths. And then what happens?
Yeah.
And then they get in trouble, right? And then they realize that they're not experts in everything, and that they've gone into the wrong space, and it hurts them. And so I think there's this balancing act between like, you're already a $2.7 trillion company if that's what their market cap is, like. You continue to grow, but like you've got some stuff you do really well. And then I also think about like the whole like antitrust piece of it, right? And that Apple needs to be in every single thing as we get bigger and bigger. And so I'm not saying this is a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, I think I'm concerned more so about the, Apple getting into the banking space with the high yield savings account here, the 4.15% they're offering, because I worry about that taking money out of smaller banks, causing more consolidation in the banking space, everything becoming too big to fail, and what that all means. And I think one of the articles I read, I think Goldman does the Apple credit card, and I think they're going to do this, and their Marcus product doesn't pay as much as the Apple thing. So like they're competing with themselves, and a bunch of money is probably going to leave Marcus and flow into this. And so it's almost like cannibalization going on, and I think it'll also be not only the smaller banks that are impacted, but some of the bigger banks. Because Apple has that brand loyalty and that brand awareness as well.
Yeah, I think the way it works is that you have to have an Apple credit card, which is I think being handled by Visa or MasterCard, and then Goldman is handling the actual savings element of it.
Yeah.
Via Marcus. So yeah, even my niece texted me about this. Like it's getting around social media. I think teenagers love Apple. I think that's like one of the first aspirational brands that they encounter when it comes to like, differentiating themselves socioeconomically from their peers in middle school and high school. It's like
you don't really get jazzed as a teenager about like Delta.
Yeah, exactly. Like you want to wear like Abercrombie or like whatever it is that separates you, like Polo, like the clothing, and then like devices, like your textbooks and your uniform. I don't know. So I think Apple is one of those companies that lets people differentiate themselves. Like it's the first bit of conspicuous consumption, and then you get into the vehicles that you get like junior, senior year, and all that fun stuff. So yeah, I think Apple's going to pick up a lot of market share from kids as well.
Yeah.
So yeah,
but you can't have an Apple credit card if you're a kid, right? So that's going to limit the people who could. As a teenager, yeah. So that might limit the folks who would be eligible for this,
But the cost to acquire an Apple, it might at 18 years old be still in that sweet spot where you want as much Apple stuff as you can to display to other people. You're not going to get an Amex Black Card as an 18-year-old, but the cost to acquire an Apple credit card is $0, right? Just like the soft credit check. So I would not be surprised if it's a super popular product for 18, 19-year-olds.
And they're the people who pay with their phone for everything too, which I don't. You know what I mean? But the younger folks pay for everything with their phone now. So.
Yep. If you're 19, are you more as jacked about walking into a Chase Bank or signing up on the iPhone that you've had since you were 13 years old for the credit card and the savings account, right? And speaking of the savings account, we got to talk about the impact it'll have on the deposits beta, aka how much the savings rates will be impacted by the Fed funds target rate. Notoriously, Chase Bank and other big banks do not increase the savings rate you get when the Fed raises interest rates until much later. I think this will have a large impact on the speed at which, most banks only raise their savings rates when they have to keep
Yeah.
customers from fleeing to other high-paying savings accounts. Customers are quite sticky when it comes to opening savings accounts. It's very hard. It's like very annoying to open up a checking account, savings account. So they just tend to be like, what's the difference? It's only paying 2% anyway. Like, I don't care. But I think that I think it'll have an impact. I think we're going to see some more competition and savings rates move faster when the Fed changes them due to this new contender. What do you think?
Absolutely. I think that will help, right? And I don't think you want to see, those outflows. But the other thing is the big banks, the Wells Fargo, the Chases of the world, the Bank of Americas, saw huge inflows last month with Silicon Valley Bank failing, with the First Republic scare that we're going to talk about here in a second. And they can afford to lose, billions and billions of dollars in deposits and still be fine because they had a ridiculous amount of inflows over the last few months that they weren't anticipating. The interesting thing is that they're not going to be losing those deposits to smaller banks. They're going to be losing them potentially to the Apple, savings account here. But anything that actually helps people who have conservative assets get a better yield on them and a better interest rate on these safe deposits. Not safe deposit boxes, but safer deposits in cash, cash in the bank is a good thing, right? Because it hasn't paid squat for the last 15 years to have cash in the bank.
Yeah, speaking of squat banks, First Republic has lost 95% of its market value over the past year. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's First Republic has been impacted like Silicon Valley Bank, and so the latest headline earlier today, and by the time this airs on Friday, who knows where First Republic will be? They dropped 50% yesterday. They dropped another 20% as of this recording here on Wednesday. Who knows where it'll land? They're going to cut 20 to 25% of their workforce. They saw, was it $100 billion in outflows, but now we're at a point where bankers are pitching, I think with some coaxing from the federal government, other banks to continue to step in to prop up First Republic. And one of the strategies will go like this. They want these other banks to purchase bonds from First Republic at above market prices, right? And take a loss on them because it'll be cheaper for the bigger banks to do that and to take maybe $1 billion loss, $2 billion loss across a bunch of these bigger banks than it will be for them to pay $30 billion in FDIC fees to reimburse the deposit fund if First Republic actually fails. And so it's kind of, I got a degree in economics, game theory. I'm imagining all like what is it all like? I'm Superman. No, I'm Superman, or I'm Spider, whatever it is. Like that meme, they're all pointing at each other, like who's the right one. And it's this question of like, who's going to give up on First Republic first? Is somebody going to come in and be like, you know what? I'm done. We're not bailing you out anymore. Like this is your problem. But thinking about it, if you're a bank and you've got these shareholders that you're responsible to, well, it's like, hey, I'm Chase. This is going to cost me $15 billion to reimburse the deposit insurance fund, or it's going to cost me $2 billion to mark down these bonds immediately after I buy them. The thing is this, when does the chaos stop? And when do they cut their losses, right? At some point, they've already deposited $30 billion into First Republic. Okay, now they're going to buy potentially premium price bonds. And then what is it a month from now if the run on deposits continues and with where the stock price is? And so, First Republic's balance sheet remains impaired. When you mark to market, it doesn't look good. And so, I don't know what's going to happen here, but it's not a great time for them. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm imagining First Republic on its back, bloodied and bruised, holding a grenade and the pin. It's like, if I'm going out, you boys are coming with me.
Yeah, and the issue is contagion, right? What happens next, right? If First Republic does fail, where, they'll get acquired by somebody, but then that's more consolidation. And then who is next? Who has the next dirtiest balance sheet? Because that's just where the people are going to look to next. And so what they're trying to stem off is that, right? And I'm sure there are other banks that have really ugly looking balance sheets out there.
Cool. A couple rapid fire articles we have here. FTX's FTT token apparently has surged 70% after lawyers say the exchange could restart. I'm not wasting time on this article.
Are you kidding me? The exchange is going to reopen and people are going to trade on it? Are you joking?
Do not. Stay away. Twitter Inc. has changed its name to X Corp and has moved to Nevada. Okay.
Good for you, Elon. Congratulations.
Yeah, that's why we can't spend too much time on this silliness. EPA lays out rules to turbocharge sales of electric cars and trucks. I'm not trying to hear anything about.
What's this all about? What's going on here? Because you're talking about power lines crisscrossing the prairie farmland, and I don't know where you stand on this.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm all for obviously greening up the American grid, and I think that it's one of the most American things that we can do is go independent from foreign Russia and OPEC on energy. But if you really know the issue, if you really drill down into the biggest issue with greening our grid, the most difficult thing is redistribution of electricity, because you can't put electricity into the problem is batteries.
Yeah, you can't store electricity. Not easily.
You can put oil. You can put oil on the back of a tanker and take it out to the middle of Arizona, and it can sit there for a year and a half until a car pulls up. If you really want to green our grid, you have to build all these power lines across private land to distribute the electricity. So if we're not, we're going to get a bunch of NIMBYism from farmers that don't want, and all types of people that don't want the grid crisscrossing through their property lines. And until we see that happen, we're fucked when it comes to regreening our grid. So that's all I'm trying to say there. SEC labels Algorand and 5 other tokens as securities in a Bittrex lawsuit. I don't care.
I don't know what that even means.
Yeah. Crypto stuff. Who's putting this crypto stuff in here? The U.S. cracked Actually, I do have a fun crypto thing here. The U.S. cracked a $3.5 billion crypto heist, and Bitcoin's anonymity is not quite anonymous as we thought that it was.
Really? On the blockchain? Who would have thought?
Did you read this article? It's amazing. This guy was 22, and he deposited some money into OpenSea. Wait, what was the Silk Road before it was shut down?
Oh, okay.
And So he puts money in, double clicks the withdrawal button, and twice as much money comes out. So he does that about, it's that simple. And he does it enough times to get enough. He got $600,000 worth of Bitcoin 10 years ago. And then now it was worth $3.5 billion. Chainalysis company comes along, and the FBI, it turns out we all thought Bitcoin, one of the use cases that it would provide anonymity. It turns out it's the exact fucking opposite. Everything is recorded forever on the blockchain. So Chainalysis says that if there's one thing that blockchain does well, it preserves evidence of crimes forever. Forever. So this dude had $3.3 billion worth of crypto in a Cheetos canister in his house when they knocked on his door and served him a warrant. He put
it into cold storage basically on a thumb drive and shoved it in a Cheetos can?
In his house. Kept it in his house. Dude, if I had $3 billion in a key, on a microchip, you think it would be in my fucking house?
Do you think you'd be sitting in the United States, or do you think you'd be in some country with no extradition treaty, right?
I'm out of here.
I mean...
So anyway, everything's recorded on the blockchain. It's like robbing a bank in the snow. They just follow your ass out into the woods. Sorry, everybody. That it was. Moving on, we have a blog post about this next article, actually. SeatGeek has filed confidentially for IPO. So this is cool. SeatGeek is a ticketing company. They filed confidentially. I had to look this up, actually. You would think we would know what filing confidentially means, but apparently it just means that they've filed with the SEC, and they just didn't tell anyone, and someone has leaked that to the information. So the information
I feel like we always find out when somebody files confidentially.
Yeah, Airbnb did it. Uber and Lyft, Slack did it. It's pretty common. It gives people the ability to put stuff in front of the SEC, but not disclose things to competitors. So it is a good sign for the IPO market that we're getting some confidential S1s for some big tech companies. This is a unicorn as of their Series E funding round about 8 months ago, valued them almost exactly at $1 billion. So technically a unicorn. So big ups to SeatGeek, and hope their employees and shareholders get an opportunity to see a liquidity event and an unfrozen IPO market later this year.
And they're coming after Ticketmaster and stuff like that. Maybe the Swifties will be big proponents of SeatGeek right after the whole Ticketmaster fiasco for the Eras tour, whatever the new tour is for Taylor. I'm not a Swiftie like AJ. But
yeah, I've traded a Swiftie out for definitely not a Swiftie here.
Yeah, more of a ska guy. Did you see that post I sent the other day? It's not a spa day, it's a ska day. Here's your trumpet, let's go.
Let's go.
I'm always down for a ska day.
As a big Sublime head, I'm always down for Ska Day. So we have this article here about how baby boomers are actually more narcissistic than millennials.
There wasn't a
Are we
lot of
going to
meat on
touch
the
this
bone
one?
here. Well,
I can't.
it made me sound like more sensitive than millennials, and this made sense to me because I haven't gotten into many like shouting matches in my life, but I've gotten into more shouting matches with baby boomers than I ever have with millennials, or have been, like, yeah. It's just I feel like they're more temperamental and they're more more sensitive. I don't know. That's my gut. What do you think? I don't want to alienate our baby boomer listeners, by the way. They're all lovely.
The baby boomers that we work with and hang out with are not the ones that I'm going to be complaining about. And long-term listeners of the podcast will know. Like, we listen to, like, I like to hang out with self-aware boomer. And by the way, painting a broad stroke against a whole generation is insane. But
yeah,
I mean, the article is about like how people respond to. I think that they rated people for stubbornness and defensiveness and certain other aspects of narcissism, like across a generation. And they just discovered they found like there was like a small difference between like of that generation and millennials. And
makes sense.
And yeah, I mean we all change as a generation as well. Like, we could develop those traits here in about 20 years. So we'll see.
Here we go. Can't wait.
We will see. All right, we got layoffs in the news again. Got to keep our listeners up to date on both finance and tech and just general layoffs. So we have EY is cutting. That's Ernst & Young, for those of you who don't know, which is a big one of the big four firms that work in the consulting and the audit, tax, and advisory space. Had a big plan to cut their company in half and create a really cool. That's one of the first of the big four to try to do this, where they would split out the consulting arm from the audit arm. And that's really good for independence because the auditors always like sold consulting to their own clients. And it was like a big conflict of interest, but apparently it failed. And almost immediately after it failed, they've decided to lay off 3,000 people. John, your thoughts?
Yeah, 5% of the U.S. workforce they're going to let go. I'm struggling with the juxtaposition here. All we've heard for the last, few years is that there are not enough accountants. There's not enough accountants. We've got a shortage. Now we have too many. We're gonna kick them on out. And so it's like you have the accounting field where it's been plagued by long hours. It's stressful. You need 150 credits to become a CPA. All this other stuff. These barriers to entry. You work these people to the bone, and then you kick them in the teeth and lay them off. So thought it was kind of an interesting move on their part. But yeah, it's certainly. Not surprising. I think those accountants, if they want to stay in accounting, those 3,000 accountants will likely be employed fairly quickly, should they want to be.
Right on. Cool. So yeah, Johnson & Johnson, we will be talking about next week. 3M is also laying off 6,000 people, and California is struggling to meet its tax. Its tax treasuries are being depleted thanks to the tech layoffs. Makes a large proportion of California's economy. It's cutting into their tax revenue. So Mr. Gavin Newsom's going to have to navigate that.
They also have the issue of the fact that the disaster declaration has pushed out the payment deadline for many people, so they're not getting the tax revenues that they thought they'd be getting in California either.
Let me alienate 30% of our clients. It rained really hard.
Okay. All right. On that next, that's Liquidity Event at brooklynify.com. If you have feedback on that comment.
I was actually there for that, and it did rain super hard.
It was crazy.
Yeah. All right, I have a 45-second ChatGPT update, and then we're gonna have to call it for today. Apparently, ChatGPT has passed the bar exam and has passed the law exam, but it cannot pass an accounting class. It got a 47% after being fed 27,000 pieces of data about accounting. So it's not good at math, y'all. So that means that accountants will be relevant for at least another 2 months.
I also got a 47% in accounting class, so we have that in common.
You're not supposed to tell our clients that, John. We had an agreement. Apparently, ChatGPT can also decode federal speak, and it can predict stock moves from headlines. It was fed a bunch of 2013 and 14 details from public Fed meetings, and it accurately predicted movements of Federal Reserve basis point adjustments. So that's not scary at all. All right. I think that's all we've got on ChatGPT this week. This has been episode 91 of the Liquidity Event. Big shout out to Mr. John Owens, our Director of Financial Planning, our outstanding guest host today. Thank you, John.
Glad to be here, Shane. Enjoy your time in the sunshine.
All right. We will see you guys next week. Thanks for listening.